Hey, the time is now 5 o'clock. I'll call this meeting of the Granbury Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that the notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. At this time, we're going to go ahead and convene into closed session under the Texas Open Meetings Act. Under Section 551.074, the possible deliberation and appointment of employment, evaluation, reassignment of duties, discipline or dismissal of an employee, more specifically staff recommendations and second request for catastrophic leave. Section 551.076, deliberations regarding security advices or security audits, and Section 551.072, purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. All those if necessary. The time is now, we'll call it 5:01, and we convene into closed session. Time is 6 o'clock. The board is now going to reconvene following our executive session this evening. We did open the meeting at 5 o'clock. So with that, I would like to open our meeting as we always do, and that is with our invocation. I've asked Dr. Harrington to please deliver that tonight.
Please bow and pray with me. Father God, we are so thankful for all the blessings that you bestow upon us in this district. God, we're in awe of the awesome responsibility we have for taking care of these kids, the teachers, for the taxpayers and the people of this community. We ask for your guidance in every decision we make. We ask that you be with us as we move through the items on the agenda. And God, we ask that you be with us in every deliberation. And finally, Father God, we ask that you be with us when we go out into this community. Let us be like Jesus. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. Harrington. Do we have someone here to do our pledge of silence? There, Jency, Miss Roth, come on up. Come on up, guys.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jency Ross, principal at Bronner Elementary, and we are here this evening to lead you in the pledges. We have Sandy Ruiz, our assistant principal, and then 3 students who are members of our student council, and they are going to introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about why they love our school, and then we'll get started with our pledges.
Good evening. I'm Alex Linwood. My favorite thing about Bronner is the teachers and the students, because everyone at our school is nice. My parents are Patrick and Rosie Linwood.
Hi, my name is Tay Coker. One of my favorite things about Bronner is going to Camp El Tesoro and practicing archery. My parents are Brad and Leisha Coker.
Hello, I'm Emery Swink. My favorite thing about Bronner is the fun activities we do in PE, like our climbing wall and Milers Club. My parents are Josh and Julie Swink.
Will everybody please stand? We will now lead you into the Texas flag, American flag. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now for our Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
We have a kindness pledge we say each day at our morning meeting. At Bronner, we are kind to ourselves, kind to each other, and kind to this space.
Bronner would like to thank our GISD school board members for everything you do for all the schools in Granbury. We appreciate you.
Our motto in Bronner is learning for all, whatever it takes. We know that you, as a school board, do whatever it takes to help our school and our community.
Thank you again for inviting Bronner to lead the pledges this evening.
Yeah. Dale Boyce. Do we have parents here that belong to these kids? Would you raise your hand? Thank you so much for coming, for the families of these wonderful kids. And I do want to offer my apologies if my flag etiquette is right. I think we have our flags backwards, so I apologize. I just caught that as we were already doing the pledges, so we will get that fixed. Okay, at this time, as we do every November, we are going to canvass the vote, as we had our recent election, as everyone knows. And we've got a couple of new board members to welcome, but first the board has to officially canvass the vote. So bear with me, I do need to read a little bit of a script here. 2 board members do constitute a quorum for the purpose of canvassing the election. The canvass must be done in a properly posted open meeting with notice of the canvass posted at least 72 hours continuously before the canvass is conducted, and we have done that. The administration recommends that we, the board, and myself as current president, to certify the summary of precinct returns and declare the election results as follows. In place 3, number of votes received, the most were received by Melanie Graff with a total of 2,823 votes. Melanie Graff, with the 2,823 votes, is duly elected as trustee to serve the expired term of place 3 of the trustee of the Granbury Independent School District. And this will be for a term of November of 21 this year through November of 2024. In place 4, the number of votes received, the most votes were received by Courtney Gore. Excuse me? Courtney Gore, with 2,756 votes, is duly elected as trustee to serve the expired term of place 4 of the trustee of as a trustee of Granbury Independent School District for the term of, again, November of this year, 2021 through November of 2024. I hereby, on behalf of the board, declare and certify the election results from this year. And with that, we can give them a round of applause. We're going to get them up here in just a minute. Before I ask Courtney and Melanie to come up and join us at the board table, we wanted to recognize our outgoing trustees, Nancy, Alana, and Chris Willis. Chris and his wife are here tonight, Emily, sitting on the front row over there. And as you know, they've had quite a trying year. They've got a little one still in the hospital, but in great hands, and God willing, will be home in the coming weeks. So Chris is a fine young man. I can't tell you what a wonderful trustee he has made, and more so than that, what a wonderful friend and a Christian role model he's been to me, and I think I can speak for the rest of these guys. We love you, Chris. We wish you nothing but the best, you and Emily and little Gabriella. I believe Dr. Glenn wanted to say something about Nancy. Nancy, if you're watching, we know we love you too, and you know that, but I'll let Dr. Glenn explain why she couldn't be here tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I was contacted by Miss Alana yesterday. For those of you who don't know, her husband had to be taken to the hospital, and so he is still at the hospital being taken care of. He has been dealing with some health issues for some time. She could not be here tonight, but she wanted to express her excitement to both Ms. Graft and Ms. Gore, her sincere congratulations to both of them. She said to make sure that I told both of you that she knows that great things are in store for GISD with you two on the Board of Trustees, and she looks forward to continuing to work with the district and for the district and serving the district in other capacities. So we were grateful. Ms. Alana, I believe, had served the district since 2009 and had done just a tremendous job. So we are thankful for her leadership, and we wish her husband a speedy recovery.
And with that, Chris, we'd like to send you off with a couple of additional gifts. I wish you folks could see we have a cart back there. We had a little baby shower for Chris earlier this evening. So loaded down with a lot of diapers, something I haven't seen in a long time. But
I had no clue this was happening either, so it was a blessing.
Yeah. So we hope we're sending them off right. But Chris, if you don't mind stepping down, and board, if you want to join me, we got a couple of things we can hand them, maybe get a quick picture. I believe we have a Texas flag that was flown over our state capitol, so that's a very neat item. Make sure you take it, because if you don't, I will. And we have a plaque which simply says, "Presented to Chris Willis with sincere appreciation for your dedication and valued contributions to Granbury ISD, Granbury ISD School Board Trustee from November of 2018 to November of 2021. Probably the youngest trustee ever elected to the state of Texas." Chris, thank you.
Chris. Oh, never mind.
And yes, Chris, you are dismissed. You don't have to stay tonight, I mean, unless you want to get paid.
I've got to go load the stuff in the trunk.
Okay. All right. Good luck, my friend.
Thank you.
Take care, Emily. Okay. Now the fun part, and why a lot of us are here tonight. We always enjoy getting new blood on the board table. You don't know the new perspective and the views that they bring. And these ladies worked really hard. I commend them for great campaigns. And want to welcome now, if our newest trustees would step up, Courtney Gore and Melanie Graft. Faith Barnes, our secretary, working secretary for the board, is going to swear them in the oath of office.
Raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I state your name. I, Courtney Gore. Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of Granbury ISD School Board Trustee of the state of Texas, and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state. So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Just like class, find a seat. Welcome. And as our custom, after we canvass the election and swear in new members, we reorganize the board every year at this time. And what that means simply is we vote on the three executive positions of the board: president, vice president, and secretary. And before I conduct the vote here in just a second, I wanted to let the board know it's been a great pleasure to serve as president of this board the last 3 years. Actually, my second stint as president of the board in my years of service, and it couldn't be a greater pleasure serving the community and the parents and kids, and especially serving with these good folks. So with that, I wanted to let you know, some of you may know I have some designs and something that will take my energy and time in the coming months. So I'm going to ask that I not be renominated as your president. I'm going to step aside and let others take the leadership role. And I know we got some well-qualified people that can ably do the job. So with that, we'll start with the election of the new president of the board. I'll accept nominations at this time.
Mr. President, I nominate Barbara Townsend as president.
And I will second.
Okay, we have a nomination from Dr. Harrington, a second from Mike Moore to nominate Barbara Townsend as president of the Board of Trustees. Are there any other nominations? All right, well, seeing no other nominations, we can accept by acclamation, but I think it'd be funner to vote. So at this time, all those in favor of voting Barbara Townsend as president of the board? You can vote for yourself. All right. It's a 7-0 vote. And at this time, Ms. Townsend, I would gladly yield as presiding officer tonight, or as I started the meeting, I can finish it. I'll leave that up to you.
I prefer you go ahead and finish this meeting so it's smooth and makes it easier for Faith's paperwork.
Always for that, aren't we, Faith? Well, thank you, and again, it's been a real pleasure. So let's now accept and open nominations for vice president of the board.
I would like to nominate Mike Moore for vice president of the board.
And I will second.
We have a nomination from Ms. Townsend, a second from Ms. McDonald for Mike Moore for vice president. Are there any other nominations? Again, seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote, Mike. This may be interesting. All those in favor of Mike Moore as vice president of the board, raise your hand. Yes, you can. We'll allow it. Great. Congratulations, Mike and Barbara. I'm sorry, I didn't say that a while ago. Now for secretary of the board, we have someone who has served us many years. A few years, sorry. I always step in it with you, Barbara.
You know what? You don't offend me one bit.
Well, you have served as board secretary for a number of years and done it very well. I would make the nomination myself, but I'll allow it from the board. Hopefully someone will nominate you.
Well, Mr. President, I'll be happy to nominate Dr. Barbara Harrington for secretary of the board.
And I will second that.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Moore, for the nomination, and Ms. Townsend for the second, for Barbara Harrington to continue as secretary of the Board of Trustees. All those, anyone else? Anyone want the job? Nope? Okay. All those in favor of Dr. Harrington, raise your hand. And congratulations, and thank you for your continued service in that role, Barbara. Okay. We now get to a fun part of the night. We have Achievement Spotlight, and this one is Veterans Day related. I'm glad to see that. And Tammy Clark is stepping up to the dais. Tammy.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Ann Barnes to come down, please. So, in honor of J.C. Campbell, we continued his Veterans Day essay contest for secondary students, and I am very pleased to announce that Ann Barnes is our district winner. Her essay was really great. It was founded in not only what the service members do day in and day out to preserve our freedoms, but also some of the sacrifices they make being away from family members and the sacrifices that their families make as well. So it was very well written, and I would like to congratulate
Ann Barnes and offer her, on behalf of Mr. Newsom from the Military Officers Association, you have a little card from him as well. So congratulations to Ann Barnes.
This is yours. We're going to go around and say individual thank yous. Good job.
Congratulations, Ann. Are your family here by chance? Raise your hand now. Thank you, guys. Congratulations. Okay, at this time, we're going to take a very brief recess because it just occurred to me, we always allow a photo op for our new trustees. While we have family and friends here, we want to give them every opportunity to get a few pictures, so that way you guys don't have to stay here to the bitter end tonight. So we're going to recess until 6:30, so that gives us 7 or 8 minutes. Is that enough time to take a few pictures and talk to folks? Okay. All right, we're going to recess. Thank you. Looks like some folks have cleared out. It's telling someone up here it looks like a Lutheran service to me now, so. Or maybe Baptist, I don't know. All right, at this time, annually, we have to have a public hearing for our first reading. Sorry, Emmett, we did not have anyone sign up for public comment. Faith, okay. So now, Emmett, go ahead. We had no one sign up tonight to speak before the board during our public comment period. So again, at this time, I'm going to open up the hearing for our first report. This is an annual requirement. Emmett Whitefield will deliver it, and it basically is all on the health of the finances of the district. So with that, Emmett, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Board, in your board books, you have the financial management report, and they are back on the back shelf for people in the audience. This is annual, and it is required. So what is FIRST? Schools First is a financial integrity rating system of the state of Texas. It's a financial accountability system for Texas school districts developed by the Texas Education Agency in response to Senate Bill 875 of the 76th Texas Legislature in 1999. The primary goal is the first is to achieve quality performance and transparency in the management of school district financial resources. Under the first rating, every school district in the state of Texas is required to prepare an annual financial management report that requires the following: the district's financial management performance rating provided by the state of Texas and TEA, and a comparison of that report to the prior years, and the additional information that was required by the Commissioner of Education in 2007, which is a copy of the superintendent's contract. However, if it's posted on the district's website, we do not have to include it in the report, and a summary of financial disclosures pertaining to the superintendent and school board. The 2020-2021 ratings are based on the 2019 and 2020 data and are published on TEA's website. The most current rating system that has been adopted by TEA is for this year, and it has 20 indicators on it. And by 60 days from the day that we get the final report, which we got on November the 5th, we have to have this public hearing for everybody to be involved in it. And we must distribute the financial management report to all attendees. Again, the current rating system is based on 20 indicators, up from the 15 indicators from last year. There's a rating from A through F, and they're on points that are earned through indicators 7 through 15 and 18 and 19. There's superior achievement, above standard achievement, meets standard achievement, and substandard achievement. However, if we answer no to any of the first four, 1, 2, or 3, or 4, then the district's rating would be F for substandard achievement, regardless of the points earned. Those four have to do with your AFR filed on time with TEA, unmodified opinion, our debt payments are paid on time, and we made timely payments to TRS and the IRS. So in your report, the contents of that report will have a description of what FIRST is. It'll have the district rating, and speaking of the district rating, since 2002-2003, the district's had 16 superior ratings, 1 above standard rating, and 1 pass on a pass-fail status from 2014 and 15. It'll also have the district status for the 2021 year, which is based on the 1920 data, and the prior year comparisons from this year and last year in there. And then there's a section on how the ratings are assessed, a glossary of terms, and then the required disclosure requirements, which would be the superintendent's contract. However, since it is posted on our district's website, it does not have to be in that report. Reimbursements received by the superintendent and the board during that fiscal year. Outside compensation that the superintendent may have done consulting outside the district. Gifts received by the superintendent or the board, and business transactions between the board and the school district. So how did we do? We had a yes on all 1, 2, 3, and 4 indicators. We scored 96 out of a possible 100 points on indicators 7 through 15, 18, and 19. We achieved the highest rating possible under the current school's FIRST system, which is superior achievement. And so that would make us having 17 since 2002-2003 superior achievement ratings. And now I will open it up for questions or comments that you may have.
Well, Limit, I know that whenever Mr. Williams left GISD, you had big shoes to fill. I will say, just with all the trustees present and our audience and administrators who work with you, it has been a seamless transition, and we know that you're very thorough, you work very hard, and we appreciate your good financial leadership. It's important to our district and our community that we have conservative leadership in the business office, and I think you understand that, and you live it out day to day in your work, and it's appreciated, and your leadership and your staff are appreciated as well.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, I can only echo that, and I appreciate that you mentioned the financial management report is available on the back. For full transparency, it has certainly a lot more detail and has the exact questions that we were asked and then some of the information related to those additional questions that you had.
Yes, sir.
Beyond that. So thank you for that. Thank you for good job. Anyone else have any questions? This is a hearing, so I would allow the public to ask questions if anyone in the audience has one. And see no one, you're off the hook, Emmett. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, at this time, we're on item number 13, our discussion and action items tonight. We have a few agenda items that we put under consent agenda. These are very routine. They're usually our budget amendments, our minutes from prior meetings, and sometimes some other routine awards that we give on bids for equipment and so forth. The board's had the opportunity to review the board book and look at these items. Are there any questions or comments at this time on the consent items under 13A?
I just want to make a comment for our new trustees on consent agenda item 3, first review of TASB localized policy update 118. You'll see those from time to time. Typically what we do is we'll give you an opportunity when they come in to review them for the first month, and so you'll see them in the consent agenda item, and then next month, so in December, we'll bring them back again as a formal action item. So when you see that first review, it's just a read only this month, and next month we'll do formal action.
Mr. President, a comment with regard to our budget amendments to recognize Acton Elementary School PTO for a donation of $6,540 for the kids there to go to the Camp Grady Spruce.
Thank you, Dr. Harrington. Any other questions or comments on the consent items? If not, we'll entertain a motion to accept as presented.
I move that we accept the consent agenda items as they are read.
And I will second.
Okay, we have a motion from Ms. Townsend, and I'm sorry, the second from Paula, Dr. McDonald. Any other questions? We'll vote. All those in favor of the consent items, raise your hand. And that motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Dr. Glenn, I think we can probably take the next 3 items, B, C, and D, together. These are casting votes for counties outside of Hood County, neighboring counties that we do have a few votes for in their annual election for their appraisal district board of directors. So if you want to tackle B, C, and D at this time, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, in odd-numbered years, we elect the board of directors for appraisal districts. Because part of Granbury ISD is in Somerville, Parker, and Johnson County, we do have votes allocated for all 3 counties for their board of directors. However, I will say that it's really not enough to make a significant impact. In visiting with the superintendent in Johnson County, he requested Don Beeson, Byron Black, and Toby Ford. In Parker County, was not able to speak to the superintendent, but in the past, we had casted our votes for Jerry Durant, who has local ties. And in Somerville County, their superintendent said the first 5 names on your list, Mr. Britton, Brown, Bush, Hawthorne, and Moore, are the incumbents. Mr. Snodgrass is a current trustee in Glen Rose ISD, and they were actually good with any of those individuals. As you know, this is a vote that is at the pleasure of the board, so we can make a recommendation, or the board can just take it at will.
For new trustees, most years, we don't even cast our votes in these counties because our vote share is so fractional. It doesn't do any good, but we can as a gesture, like Jerry Durant, sometimes we voted, but I'll leave it up to the board. We don't have to take action on any of them. Well, hearing no motion, I'm going to take that to mean the board has chosen to take no action on items B, C, and D. So we'll move on to item 13E, cast votes for Hood County Appraisal District Board of Directors. Dr. Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. President. In years past, we would not have had much influence on HCAT either, but as you know, the AG ruling just over a year ago in our favor won us an allocation of 3,125 votes out of a total of 5,000 votes for the 11 taxing entities in Hood County. As such, the district is guaranteed at least 3 members on the board and likely a 4th, depending on how you choose to allocate. But it looks to me like the district can allocate its votes among any 5 candidates, and certainly will have a lot of influence on how the board is set up. The only thing that I would bring up, and again, it's ultimately a decision of the board, whenever we went to the AG for an opinion, we worked closely with the City of Granbury and Hood County, who were also underrepresented, and they have both made nominations. I reached out to Judge Massengill, and he mentioned Ron Sutton, Rod, I'm going to say Litke, and Brooks Goodson is top potential candidates for the county. And I reached out to Chris Kaufman, and he mentioned Eddie Rodriguez, who sits on the council, is a top prospect for the city. And so I'll leave it at that. I didn't talk to anyone else. I do know Brooks Goodson and Brian Thomas have Toller ties. And then again, you know who you recommended as well. So this is the list compiled of nominees from all 11 taxing entities. So you can allocate your votes for any of the individuals on this list and up to 5 nominees.
Would you review the nominees from this board for our new members, please?
We nominated Mark Jackson, Brian Thomas, Ron Sutton, Mark McDonald, and I don't remember if we went Eddie Rodriguez or Brooks Goodson. I think it was Eddie Rodriguez. It was Brooks Goodson. Okay.
I can entertain any questions, especially from Courtney and Melanie, if you like. I was appointed to the board in November of 20 to serve out a term of a board member who had resigned. My plan would be to, should I remain on the board, to remain on just for a transitional period. I really don't have an interest serving 2 years, but we were about to enter a building project for a new building for the appraisal district. You've probably heard about it. Would hopefully incorporate the DPS, and I would kind of like to keep working that project. I like to think I'm been one of the key drivers in bringing all the parties together, and talking to the colonel at DPS. It's over all their offices to the architects at both DPS and our architect out of Weatherford that we're working with as an appraisal district. So I would humbly ask that you entertain keeping me on the board. The other existing members, Brooks Goodson and Brian Thomas. Brian, I know, wants to remain on the board. He's been on there a long time. He's been the vice chair. He would likely become the chair of the board. Brooks Goodson, as some of you may know, owns G-Force, a very good company in Toller. They employ a lot of people, and Brooks got a good business mind. Some of these gentlemen I don't know. I have spoken to Eddie Rodriguez. I know he really wants to be on the board. But Mark McDonald, I will say, is also another good business mind. He's got an HR background. He worked for a very large company for almost 30 years. He is related to someone on the board, for full disclosure. But anyway, that's my input. If y'all have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
And for our new trustees, I will say that over 62 cents on every dollar that is spent by HCAD, whether it's on salaries or the acquisition of land or the acquisition of buildings, anything they buy, Granbury ISD pays 62 cents of every dollar. So we are looking for somebody who will manage that money well, because if they go out there and spend a lot of money on payroll or on land or on a facility, it's going to cost our district, and that comes directly out of our local funds.
We need, as a board of trustees for Granbury ISD, we need a voice on that board, and that's why I volunteered to get on that board last November. Just as Dr. Glenn stated, it gives us that advance notice. We know what's being talked about and the numbers being bandied about. It's very helpful that we have a voice on that board.
Well, I would like to, I don't know the whole five, but I would like to nominate Mark Jackson, Eddie Rodriguez, and Ron Sutton. I will leave the other two up for someone else to nominate.
I just kind of reiterate, Brian Thomas has been on there a long time. It might be good to have at least him or Brooks or both to remain on the board, at least one of them.
My question would be, would that dilute our vote so much that we might lose somebody else?
I think that it is the intention of this city to cast their 285 votes toward Eddie Rodriguez, so we could pull some of those votes off. And then I'm going to assume if Judge Massengill's top choice was Mr. Sutton, that they would be allocating a decent percentage toward him as well. So for whatever that's worth, and I think if you put 700 votes on anybody, they're pretty much guaranteed on. It's going to be hard. Your top three, if you go 700 votes, you are probably getting whoever you want on. And Brooks Goodson and Brian Thomas are both Toller ISD.
How many votes does Toller have?
Toller pays 3 cents on every dollar spent. And 165 total votes.
So if we distributed the 700 votes to each of the three Barbara Townsend nominated, that we would still have some votes left over of our 3,125 that we could give to Ron.
So all other
Sutton.
all other entities have a combined 1,875. So, like in my mind, how I would think about it is if everybody else block voted somebody on, what would it take? Well, I mean, what delta do you have to be at to make sure your top three get on? And I think for me, if I did my math correctly, I think if you're about 625 or so, you're pretty safe to be on. I don't think everybody is block voting, but just so that everybody's aware.
Barbara's recommended 3. We really need 2 more recommendations, and we need to allocate the votes accordingly. So if someone wants to put all that into motion, we have to do this tonight. Unfortunately, we don't have another meeting before we're mandated to get this result back to the appraisal district.
So you're saying we need to nominate?
No.
more people?
Cast votes.
Cast votes.
Oh,
We're actually
okay.
casting votes tonight. I beg your pardon.
Okay. Mr. President, I move that we, I nominate Brooke Goodson and Ron Sutton in addition to those that were nominated by Ms. Thompson. I also move that we allocate 700 votes to let's see, you nominated again Eddie Rodriguez.
Yeah, Mr. Sutton has been nominated.
I'll say, yeah.
So right now, we have nominations for Jackson, Sutton, Rodriguez, and Goodson.
It's only 4.
We need one more.
Oh, for Sutton.
Does anybody know him? Okay. Would he be good?
Okay. Well, Brooks, then.
Yeah, I know it's your opinion, but I trust, that's what I need to hear. I don't know the man. I don't-
Brooks Goodson and Brian Thompson then are my nominees. And my motion will be to split our votes, 700 to Ron Sutton, 700 to Eddie Rodriguez, 800 to Mark Jackson, and I think that leaves us about 450. The remaining votes of the 3125.
Leave you 925 votes.
Okay, let's split those between Brooks Goodson and Brian Thomas.
How do you want to allocate that? It's an odd number. 925.
Sure. 410 and 415? No, that won't do it.
Or 6, it'd be 60.
460 and 465, will that do it? No, that won't do it.
462.
63.
463.
Yeah.
462 and 463?
Yeah.
Right. That, if you can decipher all that,
Got that, Faith?
So 800 for Mark Jackson, 700 for Eddie Rodriguez, 700 for Ron Sutton, 462 for Brooks Goodson, and 463 for Brian Thomas.
And theoretically, the county has enough votes to put someone else on if they choose.
That is correct.
They have
The
enough
the
votes.
county could either piggyback off of ours, or they could,
Just
they
give the
could-
1,200 votes to somebody else.
they could split their 1,200 votes and take the last 2 off.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a motion from Dr. Harrington, Faith, to restate Brooks Gooden, 462, myself, 800, Eddie Rodriguez, 700, Ron Sutton, 700, and Brian Thomas, 463. Do we have a second on the motion?
I will second that.
Okay. We have a first and a second on the motion as stated. Any other questions or comments? All right, we'll vote on the motion. All those in favor of the motion as stated, raise your hand. And Melanie, are you voting? Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so let the record state 6 in favor and 1 abstention. But the motion does pass. Thank you, guys. It's a little bit hairy trying to figure all that out. Okay, so we'll move on to item F, consider the revision of the 2021-2022 stipend schedule to include staff reading academy stipends. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Even though HR department executes stipends out of our department, I'm going to defer to our curriculum director, Ms. Stacy Brown, for any explanation. I had arranged the memo that you saw, but Ms. Brown has all the stuff behind it.
Surprise. I got a text about 3 minutes ago. No, I'm just teasing. All right, you guys, so we're here for you to consider revisions to the stipend schedule, specifically for those staff that are doing the Reading Academy. And here, just wanted to introduce you guys to, like you don't already know her, but the AD of the CIA, who is spearheading the project, and she has done such a great job that we've gotten many compliments from the region and also from the state that they want to model their programs after Granbury ISDs. So Tricia Sue is going to talk to you a little bit about the overview of the Reading Academies, and if you have any questions, we're here to answer them.
Hello. So House Bill 3 requires that all kinder through third grade teachers go through the Reading Academy, which is 60 plus hours of work outside of their normal schedule. It also requires that of all principals, and in Granbury ISD, our assistant principals are participating as well. The Administrator Academy is 42 plus hours, and all of these people out here that are in the academy with Stacy and I will tell you it's a lot more than that number of hours. It's a very extensive academy, but we're learning a lot, and it's been really, really good. We got with Emmett last year and talked about this new requirement to see is there any way that we could compensate everyone for the extra time outside of the school day. And so that's what these Reading Academy stipends are for, is to address them and compensate them for all of the time that they're spending outside of the regular school day to meet this requirement of House Bill 3. Anyone have any questions?
This is just a one-time stipend we're proposing?
It's for all of the people going through it this year, but each year as we hire new people, we have to put them through their academy as well. So each year we would bring it to you and tell you, this is how many we have this year, and this is what we're proposing based upon budget.
Or should you explain to them where the funding is coming from? For
It's
this?
from the early education allotment that was allocated through House Bill 3.
This is monies allocated by the state and sent us for this specific.
They leave it up to us to determine how we want to spend the funds, so they don't require you to spend it on the stipends, but they did allocate us a certain number of dollars based upon our student enrollment, and this is something that can be used for.
Okay.
And for most districts, this is how it's being.
Different districts are doing different things with it. It just kind of depends on how their funding is set up. So different districts across the state are compensating if they can. Some districts were not given a reading or a early education allotment. So it just depends on the district and their budgets.
I just want to ensure we're not taking away from anything else that.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
And it looks like it's not just a one-time stipend. How is this working?
So there are 12 modules in the academy, and each module has a certain number of hours that are required. So in order for, we divided it up into December and then May. So the first 8 modules, if teachers have completed those first 8 modules by November 29th, which we gave them that whole week of Thanksgiving to, if they needed to finish during that time, they can, then they would get half of it in December. And then when they have completed the whole academy, then they get the final payment in May.
And what are these payments? I don't see it.
It's $200 per day, so depending on, we have to pay for our dyslexia teachers and our interventionists as well, and they aren't on a regular contract. So teachers are getting compensated for 7 days at $200 a day, so it's $1,400. And then they earn 3 days of comp time this past summer that they could use for their comp days this year. And then the administrators, the same thing, they're just getting the 7 days at $200 a day. They didn't earn any comp time because they have less hours in the academy. And then all of the interventionists and our paras that are required by law to take it, they're earning the $200 per day as well, and with no comp time, because they don't have comp time days.
Is this an online or an in-person?
It's called a blended model, so it is online through Region 11 and their the Canvas system. So they take it's like a college course, and there's some different components that they have to do. You have to submit a video of you teaching a particular lesson around phonemic awareness, and once you've hit all of the requirements in each of the modules, then it moves you to the next module.
And it's fairly intensive.
It's extremely intensive.
Extremely time-consuming. Yeah. And all the principals are nodding their head, so.
And this is outside of their normal duties or
Outside of their normal
day.
duties, yes.
So this essentially, okay, is extra duty pay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And how is
Yep.
this received by the teachers? How are they,
It
what's the feedback from them?
Oh, they love it. No, they are,
I love it, right?
They're doing it because, again, it's, state law has mandated this, and it's required by the Texas Education Agency. And so I think the idea that they're paid for all of the time they're putting in outside of their normal school day, just, it makes it easier to swallow. I will say this, the feedback I've had from teachers is that it's a really good training. So there may have been some apprehension going into it because it is so time-consuming. Now that they've kind of gotten into it and they see what it's about, they understand why it's been mandated, and it is something that's been beneficial.
And it's all based around the science of teaching reading and all the components that we want to make sure that all of our kids are getting. So the content is great. It's just a lot of extra time. But I think, really, I haven't had anybody tell me they didn't think the content was top-notch, which is nice. Weren't really sure what we were getting into when we had to start it.
Thank you guys for your hard work.
Absolutely. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, we have stipend schedule before us to consider.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the stipend schedule as presented for the Reading Academy.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment or questions? All right, we'll vote on the matter. All those in favor of the Reading Academy stipends as presented, raise your hand. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, at this time, we're going to consider an updated District of Innovation Plan. Mr. Dawson?
Mr. President, thank you. On House Bill 1842 in 2015 created the District of Innovation. It allows schools to have flexibility and exemptions in certain areas of the Texas Education Code. And so we currently have 8 areas in GISD that we're seeking to continue that flexibility. We are ending our first 5-year cycle, and this summer we started researching if there's other areas of exemptions or flexibilities that we wanted to look into. As administrative team, it was presented to our district advisory committee, and it was unanimously approved on December 30th. And so based on our research this summer, we're very consistent with what other school districts are doing within their districts of innovation. And so I'll be happy to answer any questions if I need to.
Mr. Dawson, when did you say the district advisory committee approved it?
September 30th is,
On page 116 of the board book, which is the first page of the proposal, it states that the plan would consider the plan at the regular meeting on October the 18th, 2021.
that should be that is true. That was if we were to present that on October, so we can make that correction to make it be November the 15th. Thank you for
And I
that.
had one other question.
We were looking at bringing it in October, so that was put then, so we're now bringing it in. And I do want to just state that this will take effect February 1st, 2022, and will go for the next 5 years after.
You also stated, the plan states the district will conduct a local review of the experience, education, and credentials for each teacher under consideration. Is that done by HR? Is it done by the principal? Who really does that?
Great question. So we're looking at adding a couple things in the first, in A, the certification required. We're looking at adding flexibility within bilingual and dual language classes.
Right.
And also out-of-state certifications. And so, based on a local review of the experience, education, and credentials could be done by the principal, the interview team, HR will do that, and us as administrative team. We want to look and make sure that who we're hiring, we're getting the best fit for the experience of what they're about to go into. But it will allow us that flexibility that we would greatly desire.
Thank you, sir. Those were my only two questions.
Mr. Dawson, you happen to know offhand, this might be putting you on the spot, but how many districts in the state did become districts of innovation approximately?
On TA website, there is a lot of school districts that I was able to look into. So how many, I do not know, but out of 11, or well over 1,000 school districts, I want to say just ballpark at least 50% or more doing or have a district of innovation plan.
Because I know we were one of the first in the state to apply for this and become a district of innovation. The whole idea, I think it was 6 years ago when the legislature enacted the law, was to give us more flexibility. A lot of districts did it more for their calendar. They could set their calendar a little more.
That was the big push.
Yeah, less rigidly, but also, as I think you mentioned, the ability to hire certain practitioners out in the real world that maybe don't have a teaching certificate but have very impressive credentials.
Correct.
That we could bring in, particularly career and tech.
Career and tech's the big one, yes, sir.
Is the big one. Are the winds of change coming? I know at one point they were talking about pulling the plug on this program, but
There's been no talk at all of, I don't think they're going to pull the plug at all, or they would, because we have hired so many, not only at Granbury ISD, but we've hired across the state of Texas, a lot of folks in CTE, for example, law enforcement officers who have retired and now are educating kids in that area. So I don't think there's any desire to change that, because so many folks are making great impacts for kids in that industry through CTE and truly preparing them for careers and college beyond.
It would be a big shift. TEA often references it, current legislation is tied to it, so it would be a shock to the system for them to pull it at this point.
I just don't understand why the folks that are not district of
Right.
innovation are not moving forward, because of the flexibility it gives them in program development and calendar. I mean, those two
And again, you know that the majority of districts in Texas are less than 1,000 kids. So for a lot of those smaller schools that don't have robust CTE programs, it's just not needed. So.
Thank you for presenting that, Mr. Dawson. Are there any other questions or comments? We'll entertain a motion to be able to continue this program.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the updated District of Innovation Plan.
And I will second.
Motion from Mr. Moore and a second from Dr. McDonald. Any other questions? We'll vote on the matter. All those in favor of continuing District of Innovation as presented, raise your hand. And that motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Okay, our last action item is consider nominations for parent representatives on the Granbury ISD SHAC Committee. Ms. Clark?
Mr. President, at this time, the administration would request that we table this action item until December.
Okay, that's a long table. Robert's rules is actually, we just take no action. Table,
Yeah.
we were to come back to it later in tonight's meeting, so.
Yeah.
Not split hairs, but, so we'll just take no action? Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying? Just
Yeah.
disregard? Okay. All right, let's move on to reports. Dr. Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. President. And again, welcome to our two new trustees. At this point in the meeting, I will tell you that you see a lot of people out in the audience. As you guys know, the majority of those are district employees, and we thank them for coming to our meetings, even though it is mandatory. I'm sure they would come anyway. If you all get the chance, if you have not already had the opportunity to introduce yourself to Mrs. Gore and Mrs. Graft, please do so and welcome them to GISD and to our Board of Trustees. I will say that if you had the opportunity to attend our Veterans Day program, it was nothing short of outstanding, and really want to give great props to Faith Barnes, who helped set up the foyer. But our choir was excellent as always. As you guys know, we have a state recognized choir, but we also have a nationally recognized MCJROTC, and First Sergeant Rositas and Colonel Casey. Their students were on full display and just really brought great pride to our community, to our state, and really to our country. And I heard nothing but great things from the veterans that were there. In fact, a lot of tears, I would say, were shed. It was a very emotional program, and just grateful to all in the audience who had a piece or a part of that program. I had the opportunity to be at Bronner today. It was always good to be on any campus, but it was a beautiful day to do a cookout for Bronner, and we thank Ms. Ross and her staff for their hospitality for that. Pleased to announce that COVID numbers continue to decline. I see issues across the entire, not so much in the state anymore, but nationally with COVID, and we'll continue to watch and monitor those numbers. But I cannot say enough about how our district and our staff, our teaching staff in particular, has handled this pandemic. As everyone knows, it was a stressful August, but the staff really rose to the occasion. We were not a district that turned to virtual learning. We were not a district that decided to shut its doors. We stayed open and we persevered, and that is a true testament to our teaching staff. So please pass that on to your teachers when you're back at campus tomorrow. Also, just a reminder to everybody, the next long-range planning committee meeting will be on December 6th. The goal is for that committee to get it closer to a recommendation for the board, but likely any formal recommendation will not come until after the Christmas break. Also, a reminder of the trustees that next month our auditors, our financial auditors, will be here for a presentation. And again, to any members in the audience that want to come and see what a good job Emmett is doing, it'll be looks to be a good night. The preliminary reports from the audit firm are very strong, and so financially the district remains in good standing, but we will wait until that final report is made at our December meeting. December will be a very busy month, new trustees, so we will make sure that Ms. Barnes gets you an email of all the events we have going on, and We know that there are things happening on every campus, so to the principals and directors in the audience, if you have something on your campus, please let us know so we can get you on the calendar and make sure that we can have the trustees represented across the district. And finally, Thanksgiving is next week. We wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving with friends and family. That's our report for this month, Mr. President. Well, former Mr. President.
Yeah, former, yeah. At this time, Brian Carruthers, where are you? Looks like you're going to give us a short, sweet report on Transportation Department.
And I promise I'm going to be as quick as I can about it. Typically, we run 51 routes. Those mean double runs. We go out and get the elementary kids. We go bring those kids to school. We go back out, grab the secondary kids, bring those to school. We do that in the morning, the afternoon. Pretty much self-explanatory there. We have 86 pieces of pupil transportation of equipment, but part of that is because we are part of the Comanche Peak Nuclear Evacuation Team, and because of that, we have to have that extra equipment to be able to get a lot of the school district away from that. Mileage, we run about 5,335 miles a day. That's a lot of miles. If you run that into how much a year, we scare the bejeebers out of 1 million miles. We run over 920,000 simply route miles. In addition to that, we had during COVID last year, we had over 87,000 miles of field trip, white fleet, yellow fleet field trips, folks going out on stuff like, extracurricular activities, that kind of stuff. I was asked, where did you see the Transportation Department in 5 years as far as how the fleet worked to expand? And that's kind of a loaded question with the long-range planning, but I can say if things stayed exactly like they were, and if it was just the add-ins, like Templeton Demographic stated, we would probably add about 8 vehicles. And the reason I say that is we run super efficient with our routes. The typical state average for routes is about 50 per bus. We're running that or just a little bit more. We transport about half of the school attendees, the students, on their student transportation each day. So we stay pretty busy. If you're out and around during the day, you will see yellow school buses out and around all day long. Midday routes, morning routes, afternoon routes, and also evening routes where we take kids for after school activities, tutorials, band, choir, any of the clubs that want to meet afterwards. We sign them up on a pass and we take those guys home afterwards. What I really like to talk to you guys about is our fleet age and miles. With over 5,000 miles a day on a bus, we're running up miles quick. We've got 25 buses that have over 200,000 miles on them. And 28 of those buses are over 10 years old. I'm a guy that drives the wheels off my car, puts new wheels back on them, and drives it again. But I'm just taking myself or my family. I'm not taking someone else's most precious cargo. So we have to be very diligent about replacing that fleet and keeping that stuff up going. That brings me to my first goal is to update the fleet. Now, contrary to what we've done in the past, I would like to merge towards a gasoline fleet rather than a diesel fleet. The reason for that being is gasoline, number one, is a cleaner burning fuel. Number two, the units themselves are cheaper and the maintenance is cheaper. So I believe we could save the school district some money by doing that. That brings me to goal number two. Goal number two is that in order to have a gasoline fleet, we have to have fueling capacity. Our current fuel tank, we figure they're around 30 years old. They're underground. And Emmett struggles every year to find insurance for those fuel tanks. So we need to get those pulled up before something bad happens. We need to get those above ground. And so the goal is to get those guys, get those tanks out of the ground and get some above-ground fuel tanks, more gasoline capacity, so we can go to a more efficient form of transportation. And my goal 3, which I must say is probably more like a dream than a goal, but we're all allowed to dream, is that we had some kind of student electronic bus pass. If you can imagine, and my son, who goes to Korea in the summertime, he loves to ride the train, the metro train around, and he said he gets a pass, and he takes that pass and he swipes it, and he moves on down through the line. I would like to be able to do something like that for a couple of reasons. And, well, actually, about 14 reasons, and that's the first 2 weeks of school, where we want to know where those kids are, and that pass would allow us to see that Johnny got on bus 15, Johnny got off at 303 Jones Street. And so, well, I've got a vision to be able to do that, where we know where the schools know where Johnny is on the bus, what buses Johnny's on, and the parents can in fact track that bus to where Johnny is going. Those are my 3 goals, brags. First brag, have you had a chance to look at our buses compared to some of the other buses we've got around? Our buses are some of the best looking buses around. When you're at a ball game, when you are at a band concert or something, look at our buses and look at the rest. Ours are pretty and shiny. And the reason for that is on Saturday, I have a couple of my staff come over, and community service from up here at Hood County Community Service comes down, and they donate and they bus wash my entire fleet every Saturday. And so those guys take their time to help us be one of the best looking school districts in the state of Texas. So that's brag 1. Brag 2 is always, and I guess it will always be, Leslie Gray. Leslie Gray is over our field trips, and the routes are pretty easy. We know they're going to get off, go to the same place, they're going to go to the school, they're going to get off at the school, and they're going to go home. They pretty much know that. Miss Leslie Gray, we're always throwing trips and stuff like that. Football field trips, we brought middle schoolers up to the high school for the theater. We're doing that quite a bit, and she coordinates that ballet on a daily basis. I've always got to brag with her. And the last and probably the best is every single driver I've got. Terry Slimlins would be mad at me for not picking out just one, but I want to brag on every single driver I've got. The reason for that is they are the first driver, the first person that those kids see that are school representative, and they're the last. They're getting up here probably at 5 o'clock in the morning, and a lot of them aren't leaving until 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night. Those guys are really after it, and I got to say that we couldn't do this without those guys, and those are pretty much awesome. I hope I didn't take up too much of y'all's time. Do y'all have any questions or anything?
Very thorough report, Brian.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
Brian, how about shortage of drivers?
Shortage of drivers. I really hope you don't jinx me on this.
Oh, I'll take it back. I am so sorry.
I think we're doing okay. I currently have 51 route drivers, 14 attendants, 6 utilities. Now, those utilities jump in and cover similar to what substitute teachers will cover. I have lead drivers and shop personnel and office personnel with that. There has been time during COVID when I was really scared, and I wasn't sure whether we were going to make it through. But right now, we seem to be doing good with that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Brian, I want to say I have a 4th grader who the highlight of his day is riding that bus.
Well, thank you very much.
Bus drivers are doing a fantastic job, so thank you, and make sure and let them know how
Yes,
much we
ma'am.
appreciate them.
I certainly will. All right.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, sir.
Good job. Okay. Emmett, we're into financial statements. If you'd like to go ahead and address items C, D, and E.
Thank you, Mr. President. Board, in front of you, you have this financial statements for the month ending October 31st, 2021. At the request of the board, we added an extra column this month for pre-COVID, so we could compare what it looked like pre-COVID. I will have to jump back, probably went around March, jump back another year so that we can see pre-COVID numbers, because I believe the year 1920 in March, that's when we all went home for a while. So I will adjust that when we get to those. But if you'll look at your revenues there, you can see the year-to-date percentage on our revenues is 3.41% as compared to last year's 1.58%. And then the prior year to that, 4.3%. So it gets a little closer to where it was. Some notable difference there would be your property taxes. Currently, we're at 0.24% of our revenue generated for our budget. And last year, we were at 0.45%. The issue there is that from month to month, our HCAD payments will fluctuate. And I did look at November. So when I come back to you in November, last year's November was at 1.9. This year's November is at 2.3. So we will start to level out when we get to those months. And then it will start to work itself out. If you'll look at your expenses down there, we are at 19.09% as compared to last year's 17.85%, and then the prior year is 17.68%. Notable expenditure differences in there will be in our Function 13, Curriculum, Instruction, and Staff Development, as at 14.79 this year as opposed to last year's 11.41. As the prior year to that, 15.47, and it has to do more with travel. Last year, we didn't do a whole lot of travel for staff development, and so that probably put a big old ding in that function. The other one would be social work services, and that percentage from 15.8, 15.99, and to 9.8%. That is due to staff changes in that area, and that security officer. And then in our Function 34, we're at 28.48% as compared to last year's 19.47%, and the year before that, 32.04%. And that is due to the fact that we did purchase at the last board, was the last board meeting that we purchased 2 school buses. And that is in that function as well. And then in Function 52, which is our security and monitoring, we're down at 15.94% as opposed to last year's 16.33%. And that was due to purchases last year of desktop units for security monitoring and cameras. So that's the differences in those on your financials. Do you have any questions on those?
Thank you for such thorough explanation of those differences.
Yes, ma'am. I will note up on our investment income that there is a negative number there, and I'm going to address that when we get to the investment statement. But in prior years, we reported the depreciation and the interest income separately. However, we accounted for them in the books as the same. So when we look at our investment statement, that is the reason it looks like we have negative income in there. And I just felt like it was a better transparency, because when you compare your financials back to your investment statement, they should be a little bit closer than they are or have been in the past, and that's the reason they are like that. So moving on to that, that is our investment statement. You can see that we are showing negative investments, and that has to do with the depreciation, and that is in our Ameritrade, which we have $5+ million invested with Ameritrade, and there is depreciation on that typically in these months. I did go back and look at October of 2020, and the depreciation that month was $10,800, and this month was $11,500, and it will work itself out. They just hit us on the front end with that depreciation. So if you look, and when you look at your investment statement, it does look like we do have negative investment income, because that's the way we account for it, and I felt like that was a better way of showing that to y'all, instead of showing you $4,000 in investment income when we had $11,000 of depreciation. And then moving on, we have our categorical expenditures over $50,000 but less than $100,000, and that is in your packet, and that is Nearpod, and it was bought through a buy board contract. It's software renewal. That particular software provides instructional resources and assessments for our Google classrooms on our learning management system. And we're bringing that to you after the purchase, but according to board policy.
Thank you, Emmett. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, well, finally tonight, item 15, we do have a couple of action items that come from our closed session. Dr. Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. President. You have in front of you the staff recommendations for November as presented by Mr. Jones in the HR department. Appreciate the good work that you and your team are doing, Wes. It is our recommendation that you approve as presented.
We have seen and discussed staff recommendations. You see it. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the staff recommendations.
I second that.
We have a motion from Ms. Townsend, a second from Dr. Harrington to approve staff recommendations as we discussed earlier tonight. All those in favor, raise your hand. And none opposed. Okay, and we also have the second request for catastrophic leave. Dr. Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. President. One final action item tonight. We do have a request for catastrophic leave. This request does meet all requirements laid out in our board policy, and the review committee has approved it and passed it on to the board for action.
Consider a motion.
Mr. President, I say that we consider the second request for the catastrophic leave.
And I'll second.
Thank you, Dr. McDonald, for the motion, and Mr. Moore for the second on the second request for catastrophic leave. Again, we discussed this in closed session, and our compassion goes out to this employee and their young child. All those in favor, raise your hand. And that motion carries. And my final act as president of the board, forever and ever, I adjourn this meeting at 7:30. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, board.